Hello, and welcome to episode 72 of the Dash Force Three Amigos podcast. I'm Mark Mason, and I'm joined by my two fellow hosts, Joel Valenzuela. How are you?
Doing very nice. It's final shirt season, apparently.
It's getting a bit cold and chilly over here as well. And Mastermind, aka Brian, how's it going?
Most excellent.
And I'm very excited because this week our special guest is Cale Moodie, who is the CEO of Neptune Dash, or should I say Neptune Dash Technologies Corp? What do you prefer, Cale?
That would be our legal name, but I like to just say Neptune Dash, Neptune.
Yeah, so and don't let his name fool you. He's actually a very jovial guy.
Yeah, welcome to the podcast. It's nice to finally meet you. I know there's many in the community really looking forward to this.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm super stoked.
Right. Well, I think let's just start from the very beginning, because Neptune Dash has been going since the end of last year when you first launched. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's a really funny story. I mean, we actually literally incorporated the company probably in October of last year, and we took it from inception. I mean, we had the idea in the summer, but we took it from literally incorporation to a public entity by end of January 22nd, we IPO'd or RTO'd into a public entity. So it was probably, I think, one of the quickest transactions our lawyers ever done. At that time, obviously, the market was very exciting. Everybody was rushing into the space. It was all you could read, all you could hear, the media, everything. So that was a very frothy point, and it was a great point to get out there, pound the pavement, hit up all the bankers, the brokers, private wealth, and get capital in to build what we thought was an amazing idea. And I still believe that. I think obviously we're super bullish on Dash and really pumped about the future.
Yeah, you seem to be quite unique in your own space. I mean, even now talking, it still seems. I see Neptune Dash, and I follow you on Twitter, and I see you go to a lot of investment events, mainly in Canada. Yeah. But like, you seem to be one of the niche blockchain companies that offers shares. So it's still it's still fairly fresh and new. So when you go to these events and you talk to people, do they actually grasp the concept of masternodes, or do you feel like this is still a hurdle that you have to overcome every time?
Yeah, like literally 98% of people have no clue what we do. So they're still buying the stock because they want to be in the space. So the questions I get is, are you a miner? And I have to explain to them the difference between mining and what we do with masternodes. And our CapEx is actually buying Dash, not buying equipment, which I think is very valuable. But I have to walk through this sort of explanation. And if you don't understand blockchain at all and how cryptocurrency works and proof of stake, proof of work, that sort of thing, most people kind of glaze over and they go, okay, I kind of get it. So I try and break it down for them. And I say, hey, look, we're very similar to a fund within an operating business, a fund that actually sits on a large pile of cryptocurrency, that being Dash, that we think is one of the best structured for what we do. That fund kicks out a dividend every year in the form of Dash. We take that Dash and we build more masternodes with that. And that's the core of our business.
Well, you're clearly doing something right, because Fidelity invested, what was it, like 15%, and they're huge, right? So
yeah, they're huge. It was pretty awesome, and we spoke to them. We met with them actually physically in Toronto it was in December. We had our first meeting with them, and they quickly got it. They were getting into the space. They're super bullish on cryptocurrency as well, and blockchain, obviously blockchain tech. So they bought 11% in our initial financing. So I think they were one of the biggest investors. And then they've topped up in the market. So as the market sort of rolled over, they kept on buying in the market. They filed a public early warning report saying they now have 15%. That's the most Fidelity will take in any company. So they've maxed their investment of Neptune Dash. I met with them a couple months ago with their team. They love what we're doing. They said, just hold tight. We're still very bullish on the market and the sector. Just sit on it and do what you do.
Yeah. So in order to get Fidelity to invest more, then you're going to have to start an alternative company called Pluto Dash, and then they could throw another 15% into that one.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you're kind of onto something, because we actually do have Neptune Stake, which is a proof of stake mining company. We're incubating that. That's 1% of our assets, but we're incubating that and waiting for the right timing to raise capital for that and spin it out into another public company, which would be a proof of stake mining company. Yeah. So that's kind of another angle. But yeah, I mean, then they could obviously top up, or if we raised our money at some point in time.
So by proof of stake mining, you mean like proof of stake, like investing in currencies that do run a proof of stake model, and then just kind of staking and running and letting people buy shares in that company. It's just trying to make exactly sure, because proof of stake and mining are kind of opposite terms, and a lot of people hearing those two together might, because mining is proof of work, proof of stake is staking.
Correct. So we call it a proof of stake mining company because it sort of, again, allows us to run an index of proof of stake coins within an operating entity. So right now it's not a public company, so it's kind of irrelevant, and it's so small in our asset base. But yes, very different things. Obviously, proof of work and proof of stake. I love the proof of stake model. It's got a lot of similarities, obviously, to running masternodes, where you're sort of sitting on it like a big checking account that pays you, or savings account paying you interest. So there's some interesting things we're doing there, and I think we put out some press releases, which you guys have probably seen. It sort of lines up all our tokens that we have in there, and we basically weight that on market caps. So that's another line of the business, small line that is kind of sitting there stagnant right now until the timing's right, because we're going to have to fund that. So we're going to actually have to get capital into that to scale it up. And right now we just don't see that as being efficient in this market. It's really a short-term bear market.
Man, that's a beautiful view you got going back there. Y'all are based in Canada. Is everyone around the world able to participate in the pooling service?
Correct. Yeah, there's no limitations. You know, we've had our legal team going over this for weeks now. We don't see any sort of problems with anybody in the world giving us their Dash to store. I mean, essentially, they're just giving us tokens, and we're basically signing an agreement that they belong to them. So.
Is there KYC stuff that y'all have to do, or how does that work?
No, it's not necessary. So we don't need any information other than information to make us comfortable with the person transferring the Dash to us. All their information, so we know who they are. We obviously keep that classified, and we can send it back to them at some point in time. But right now we're sort of in beta testing. I think it's pretty exciting. Next week, people will see our first pooled Masternode coming live. So we're beta testing this. I mean, we're literally looking to see, hey, what does the market want? This is interesting because it's done within a public company, so there's obviously much more scrutiny. We have to file audits every year by a third-party auditor that's going to basically lay out everything we've done, all our pooled Masternode, all our assets, that sort of thing. We're using the same security protocols we use for all our assets. Currently, we fully insure it, which means that we keep in cold storage the equivalent amount of other people's Dash we have, in that if anything happens and there's any losses, we can make sure that we can cover it with our own Dash.
Yeah, so let me approach this from the dumb/simple investor's perspective. So first off, if I want to join a pooled Masternode thing, what do I do? I'm just a crypto fan. I have a bunch of Dash. I don't have enough for a Masternode by a long shot. I want to get in on this. How do I go about pooling? Like, for what do you need from me first?
Yeah, what's the minimum? What's the minimum?
So right now because we're in beta testing, and I have to be very, as I mentioned earlier to you guys before we went on air, I just have to be careful about what I say here, because we're in beta testing. I don't want to commit to anything because we're still feeling that out. We're not exactly sure what the optimal point is. What we do know is obviously what we keep and what we give back. So I can talk about that, what we anticipate. I can talk about the demand we've had, that sort of thing. So the minimum right now at this point in time, we're taking 100, and there's a lot of people at 100.
Wow.
So we've had our response has blown our minds. We're quite excited about it. We thought it was just going to be sort of a fun project, which I think a lot of people have thought as well. But it's not very lucrative, actually, unless you really get, I mean, at 15 to 20% return for us of the reward. So for us, we're taking 18%, which is, I think, a couple points higher than some of the other companies. We're a public company, obviously, so we have additional transparency costs. But I think it gives people sending your Dash over to a Canadian publicly traded, audited company is a lot more comfortable and comforting than sending it to somebody that you really don't know where they are and who they are. So So yeah. So I mean, right, again, back to your question, how much is the minimum? Right now for beta testing, we're at 100.
Yeah. So so say I got 100 Dash sitting around. I'm trying to get it. I'm like, so I contact you guys, say, hey, I want to get started pooling. I have 100 Dash.
Yeah.
And then what?
And then we call you. So someone's going to call you. Well, I mean, we'll trade information. Someone's going to call you. We want to build that sort of comfort relationship. I don't want just anonymous sending me Dash and to an anonymous company over here. And I want to get comfortable with who the person transferring the Dash is. Currently, we've taken Dash from some Canadians. That's not to say we're not going to take it from Americans and Europeans and anybody around the world. There's no rules or laws saying we can't do that. So you contact us, you go into the website, you enter your details, we get an email, and the email would say, hey, I have some Dash, I want to contribute to a Masternode. And then we would reach out, contact you, tell you what we need to do. As soon as we're ready for you, we keep you sort of in a loop, and as soon as we're ready to build that next Masternode with your Dash, we contact you. And hopefully it comes together pretty quickly. I mean, we're anticipating this is really going to ramp up.
So what kind of information is gathered? Like, so say you get someone saying, I'm the flying Dash man, and I want to just deposit 100 Dash. I want to be part of your thing. And then the person casually tells you, or maybe even provides some address that they live in Canada or something like that. But do you require full legal name, and do you require any kind of identification? And do you keep, if so, do you keep any on file? Like what's the kind of contents of the disclosure?
So according to legal, and I'm pretty certain we definitely don't keep any information on file other than the people who have Dash with us, which is a name, a phone number, and an email address.
This is good.
And I mean, they're gonna want us to have contact information for them, because at some point in time they're gonna want to withdraw, and we're gonna want to know it's the same person.
So that's required so far as name and contact information, and then you on your personal side, just so you don't have random sock puppet people say, oh yeah, I'm this person, and just for your own purposes, you want to know, you want to have an actual conversation with these people. Is that, am I getting all that right?
Yeah, we're having multiple conversations, and multiple parties at our company are sitting on the phone with them. All our same protocols in terms of blockchain address is double reviewed for accuracy. We sit on an email. The email chain is CCs all members of our group. So I mean, yeah, there's a number of protocols we walk through for security purposes. It's on us, kind of, if we lose some of the Dash. So we really don't want to avoid that.
So you said that you're asking them for their name. Are you requiring their full name? Any kind of identification, anything like that?
So far, full name. Identification, I don't believe so. I don't believe so, because anybody can send anybody Dash. There's no law saying you randomly couldn't send me 100 Dash and get nothing in return. I mean, we're not dealing with fiat currency here, but even with fiat, you could send me 20 grand if you wanted to.
I figure when they would return it too, that y'all would have the address, and that y'all would not want to return it to some other address that somebody contacted you. Be like, no, of
course, yeah. I mean, we track all this stuff in house. The addresses, of course, we can see all this on the Dash blockchain. Of course, this is the beauty of the blockchain, right? We know where it came from, and we know how to get it back there.
Yeah. So, for example, when someone's trying to sorry, I almost lost my train of thought there. So basically what you do is you just collect name and info and address, and then what are the kind of security safeguards on the consumer side? So for example, this has been always one of the big risks of a trusted system like this is the sort of the catch-22 is, do you have like some kind of a legal contract agreement with full ML-KYC, or do you just roll the dice and you just trust this anonymous person, like codenamed, bleat or something like that, and then
we're avoiding those guys.
So like, what guarantees are there that you guys don't run away with the money, as far as like any kind of guarantees?
For us, I mean, well, there is a legal agreement. So if you I don't know if you've explored the website, if you go to the pooling page, there's a legal arrangement that you have to read through at length. And I'm sure people do read through it, because this is pretty important. We've had our law firm here in Vancouver go through it extensively. That's not to say it won't morph or change over time. Right now, there's no AML KYC stuff required, according to our lawyers, because someone is basically just sending us tokens. So yeah, so you click I accept, and you put in your email, and you go through that like as if you were dealing with any sort of legal jargon on any other website. So that's the legal document. That's what holds us to return your tokens to you. And again, for reliability and protection of the consumer, well, I mean, the company is run by a number of fairly well-known individuals, certainly in Vancouver, Canada, some of them around North America, in the technology space. We don't want to smear our names. We don't want to destroy the company. We don't want to be sued. All these sorts of good stuff. We're not operating out of some foreign jurisdiction where there's no legal recourse. So certainly, I think in terms of consumer protection, other than sending your Dash to a public Canadian company is probably as good as it's going to get, I would say.
Yeah, y'all are the most trusted solution right now, as far as I can tell. Yeah, are y'all regulated by the Canadian government for the stock exchange stuff?
Yep. Yeah, we're regulated by the BCSC, so that's the BC Securities Commission. That's provincial, and we're also regulated by the OSC, which is like your SEC. And then the OSC pretty much follows the exact rules of the SEC. So I mean, essentially, it's the same. It's very strict. It's one of the most strict in the world.
And you're public facing as well, as in like, we know who you are, we know your history. I was actually looking at you earlier, your LinkedIn, because you've been CFOs of mining companies and all sorts of stuff. So you've obviously been a very successful man in your past. We've already mentioned that Fidelity owning a 15% stake, which is amazing, but just as a testament to how trustworthy you are on that front, which kind of makes me wonder a little bit why you went into Dash, because you seem to have like a long history of sort of mining companies in this Canadian space. To the Toronto Venture Stock Exchange is very well known for junior miners, right? So I mean, like, why did you make this transition? I know we're talking about the pooling service.
No, I'll tell you, it's actually a pretty interesting story. So I'm a CPA by American standards, a chartered accountant by UK standards, whatever you want to call it, CA, CPA. So I started out in finance. I worked for a company called KPMG in their industrial markets group segment, which probably everybody knows. So I got really accustomed to dealing with mining companies here in Canada, because that's a big market and a big industry. So that was sort of my public practice background, but I became a real gold bug. And the reason I liked gold, because with the scarcity fundamentals. So and you know, the 2008 meltdown, I was like, oh my God, like quantitative easing, this is a joke. This is ridiculous. I mean, what's my paper money really worth? Who knows? When we can just print as much as we want forever. So the scarcity fundamentals of precious metals really drew me into the precious metals sector, and I really love that. And then in 2000, I think it was probably 2010, somebody mentioned this thing called Bitcoin. I was like, oh yeah, digital money, I don't get it. Like, whatever. It sort of glazed over, and I didn't think about it again. And then in 2012, I think we had that bit of a rally where things were moving to like $1,000, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. And then I sort of did some more digging and research, and I was like, okay, you know, scarcity got the same fundamentals, digital gold, right? So I get that. There's only ever going to be a certain number of these tokens. So there's value in that, right? Value in scarcity. And so in 2013, actually, funny enough, way too early for our time, and probably would have killed it if I had actually got this out of the gate, but we started a payment processing company for Bitcoin. And we tried to take this thing public, and it died on the vine, literally, because I mean, the regulators were trying to shut these things down at that point in time. The banks wouldn't touch it. Like, nobody would touch it. So we couldn't even get a bank account. We were like, oh no. And then the price came off again. We're like, no, the Bitcoin's down. We can't get a bank account. So this thing, like, literally, I just wrapped up the corporation last week, funny enough. Signed the last document of death. But that was back in 2012, 2013. So couldn't get it off the ground then. There was no, and my realm and my specialty is public markets finance. So couldn't get that off the ground, unfortunately, because I think in hindsight now, I mean, it would have been probably $1 billion company by now. But, you know, timing is everything, right? So fast forward, I did personal investing in Bitcoin. And then when things kicked on in 2017, at the beginning of 2017, I joined forces with Troy, and we started to kick around some ideas. We were introduced by a mutual friend, and we both sort of had that passion and belief in crypto. And we started to kick around numerous ideas. And what we were really leaning towards was an ETF. And of course, he wasn't. In the US, people were already on that. But Canada, nobody was really even doing it yet. In fact, we got the ticker BTC on the TSXV, or so the TSX. So I mean, it was really like we were the first in there. But you know, there's no room for the funds right now. The OSC is mimicking the SEC, and the SEC is saying no, as you all know. So we started to get creative, and we looked at the top sort of market cap coins, and said, hey, what has an interesting structure that we can run an operating business around, but at the same time accumulate large piles of cryptocurrency? And Dash jumped out at us. I think it was even number 4 or 5 at the time, maybe less, maybe number 3. And we said, hey, look at Dash. The Masternode structure is phenomenal. I mean, we love this. This is really cool. We basically just buy a pile of Dash and build and operate masternodes. And with those masternodes, we're getting kicked back returns. And those returns, we can build more masternodes, and we can look at other tech involved in the space, the Dash space, but we really like what they're doing. We don't need to buy a bunch of equipment. We have no obsolescence costs. We don't need to lease space. It would seem like a no-brainer. So we quickly made moves to do this.
So let me throw something back at you, because the crypto space is obviously, it's new and it's growing, and we're already starting to see old fuddy-duddies show up in crypto in these short, most of a decade that it's been, who a lot of there have been people that say masternodes are scams, and people who any coin that has masternodes, like that's a scammy thing. That's not legit. Just disrespect any coin that has masternodes. So if some out, in my opinion, I guess uneducated or uninformed or directly malicious person approached you saying that, what would your response to that be when people say, oh, you invest in masters? Isn't that like a scammy function or something?
Yeah, and I've never heard that before, but how I would respond, I would say,
yourself lucky, because all of us have, definitely.
What's the argument for it being a scam?
Well, there we go. I guess it's like,
I think the problem is where I kind of see Dash as a second generation cryptocurrency, and I think even people familiar with cryptocurrency just aren't used to a second layer, the second tier, and they just can't get their head around it. But you know, hey ho. Anyway, Cale, would you mind showing the achievement behind you? Because we're just talking about credibility and trust and securing investment and dealing with big numbers and being trustworthy. And I think that says it more than anything.
Do you want me to respond to the scam question first?
Well, yeah,
why not? If you can.
I'm
just, it's honestly like it's honestly something that's come up a lot, and so obviously we're all seasoned with our own very pro Dash bias about like, oh, this is why we think it's amazing and stuff like that. But I just want to see what a relative outsider who's more crypto agnostic would say to you know, when people say it's kind of like a scam or like a pyramid type scheme where it's just rewards early adopters throwing in money and steals from the miners because it just siphons money away from them and stuff. So I mean, how would you
scam comments I've received have been generally people who don't understand the space at all, who are very angry because they bought stock in some of these companies in December and they're down 80%. That's generally the only scam questions I have. And I say, look, well, these reflect the market, and this is the trend that we've seen for 10 years, ups and downs. So that's one sort of question. The next, the Masternode, you know, I would analogize it to something like, you know, it's like saying a fund is a scam, or having a checking account is a scam. I mean, you're basically, the Masternodes is sort of like multiple banks within a financial system that perform functions. It's almost like having a number of Federal Reserves or something that perform functions. They don't create more money. Well, they do create more money. They do create more money, I guess, through the Masternode. The miners create the more money, but they are part of that function. So I would say, you know, it's pools of this currency within an ecosystem that perform necessary functions, and it ties it up in checkings account, just like anybody would have a checkings account or put their money in a fund where it's not actually moving around necessarily. You know, I don't see why we'd call that a scam. The biggest scam, I would say, is unlimited, endless printing of any token, fiat currency, asset of any class, right? If you can make an endless amount of it, well, then it's you know, tying a certain value to it could be considered scammy, depending on what that intrinsic value is. But I mean, it's much deeper than that, and you know, as soon as somebody said something like that, I would, you know, probably want to end that conversation, because it's like trying to debate religion or something. But really, you know, really, yeah.
Speaking of holy wars, and not, you know, going to end that sort of line questioning on this thing. There seems to be, from a lot of us who've been involved in the Dash community for, you know, years and closely, there seems to be not a lot of there seems to be a little bit of exclusion of Dash in the more crypto insider circles. And it seems, there seems to be a sentiment that Dash is kind of last to be added to certain services or exchanges, or has to explicitly pay for them when other coins may not have. And it seems there doesn't seem to be a lot of respect for Dash. Have you encountered this, or is this just the crazy trolling crypto bubble that a few of us have the unfortunate
yeah, you guys would encounter that. You guys would encounter that way more than I would, because I mean, our encounters are more limited to a retail investor base, so not as knowledgeable as the pure believers in certain crypto. Or, you know, our following is probably more crypto agnostic. They believe sort of like in the performance of all cryptocurrencies, and we just happen to be a public company there that actually, you know, you generate some revenue, and it's kind of a nice little structure, clean structure, and it trades and it's liquid. But you know, I read about that, but I don't really believe it. I mean, people seem to have their alliances with certain cryptocurrencies. I don't know why. I guess you could say that's like saying the US dollar is #1 in the world and forget everybody else. It's all garbage for whatever reason. But I mean, it's again, it's like you're right. It's a faith belief sort of argument, and you know, I think Dash is as good a contender as any, if not one of the top.
If you was a retail investor, you would look at Neptune Dash, and you would look at the investment that you've received. And if I was to invest in Neptune Dash, I would look at your credibility and your trust. And we've already mentioned Fidelity. They manage over $1 trillion worth in assets.
Yeah,
they're going to do their due diligence, and if they're going to put money into you, you know, they know what they're about. So I think, if in terms of the scam and the trust thing, I think in terms of you, not that you've said that you had to address it, that's the only thing you need to say, really. Just look at the caliber of the people that are actually interested from an investment point of view. I don't know if you wanted to show the achievement you got behind you, because
let's do that. I'm sorry, I've been distracting with
because it ties in. It ties in nicely.
I don't know if you can see it. There we go with the background. So this was our raise in December, which I was very pleased with. If people can't read it, it says $20.7 million, and that was December 2017. So that was at the end of last year, at sort of the peak of the market. We promoted this thing for about 4 days. We were looking to raise $10 million. We had 27 million in orders, so 28 million in orders. We pared that back somewhat to about 20.7, and closed the financing in December, convertible debenture financing, which we then converted in January into stock at about 50 cents. Yeah, it was a very exciting time. I mean, in hindsight, we're like, okay, well, that was kind of the top of the market. Did we know? But I mean, again, the top of the market for that period of time, we'll see another top, a higher top, I expect, and so on and so forth going forward for years. So, you know, I guess our luck was to be at that time when we could raise a lot of capital. The unlucky part was that we could raise a lot of capital at the top of the market and things were going to roll over. So could we have managed that risk of the market rolling over a little better? Probably could have been tweaked it a little bit and being a little more cautious and averaged in to Dash over time. But I mean, things are really capitulating by February, March, right? Things are really rolling over. So again, trying to time the market is something that's very difficult to do in just in a blue chip market, let alone in a cryptocurrency market.
I only
Yeah,
have one fear of Neptune Dash, like one major concern, and it's actually more of a positive than a negative. It's not negative. I'm actually concerned that you might become too powerful because you already operate 18 masternodes. I believe previously that you stated that you would not be voting on proposals with these masternodes. Would you mind updating that? Is that still the case? And what about voting in the pooling service as well? Are you separating the voting aspect and just focusing on the investment side and supporting providing a service to the network? Or
yeah, basically, would any customers be able to influence Masternode votes? Or are you just saying, look, we're only here as an investment opportunity. We're not interested in actually providing any sort of a voting service?
Right. So a couple points there. Currently, we're abstaining from voting because we don't want to be scrutinized for allegiances or which way we're leaning or that sort of thing. That could change going forward into the future. But again, as a public company, we answer to shareholders, right? So we have a board of directors. I'm on the board of directors. There's a number of other individuals. You can see their backgrounds on the website. Those board of directors, of course, are elected by shareholders. And of course, those shareholders obviously have a say in how the company's run. In fact, they have the entire say. Obviously, I'm a large shareholder as well. But that said, I mean, if you really want to get involved in voting, you almost need sort of that individual who's on it all the time, because there's a lot happening on that end of things. And to be able to vote from a knowledgeable perspective on all the different ventures that are being proposed, I think you really have to put some time and effort into it. We've just not had the bandwidth yet. So simply, it's been such a crazy frenzy since we went public. We just said, let's abstain for now. If we get to that point where we believe that we could sway the market in one way or another with the number of masternodes we have, then we'd have to reevaluate it. But right now we're abstaining. I mean, we're up to date and we watch what's happening, but we think it'd be better to be neutral, be a Switzerland right now.
Yeah. So now a little bit more technical question, and of course, if any of this stuff is just too I'm not a technical person technically either, you know, but just in case, feel free to just be like, I don't know about that.
If I glaze over and don't say anything, you'll know it's too technical for me. So
yeah, that's fine. So first off, 12.4 is a update that's pending to the Dash network. It's called 12.4. They might change the version number at some point, but basically it's a major overhaul of the network that will change exactly how Masters will be set up. So the way Masters is set up right now is you have a single key, a single cryptographic key that proves that you own the collateral, and you use that collateral key to also vote and run the node. And the nodes will be split into 3 keys, with one collateral key that kind of authorizes the voting key and then the operator key, and then you'll only need the operator key. So basically, when 12.4 comes out, first off, all masternodes will have to be completely restarted. You'll have to take them, you'll have to move the collateral, and then reset them up. So first off, are you guys planning and ready for that significant change?
Yeah, our CTO Cale Moodie is on all that. I mean, we did a update. I believe it was it a month or 2 ago, where we had to essentially walk through that update with the masternodes. They weren't going to fail immediately, but over time they would have stopped collecting the rewards, which we obviously don't want. We don't want to be down even for an hour. So I mean, to be honest with you, it's a major pain in the ass for us, because all our stuff's in cold storage. Obviously, with our law firm, we have to have numerous redundancies in place. So we literally have to have 2 directors in the room and our lawyer to even access the assets. So we have to basically sit in a room with our lawyer all day redoing this stuff. And so it's a pain in the ass factor high. We're not gonna sacrifice our redundancies for that. We're gonna obviously go through the whole process. So yeah, I mean, we'll obviously do that. But I guess from my question back to you is what does this do to? I mean, what's the resulting problem here? What's the resulting point of this update?
Yeah. So as far as things will be enabled by this update, one of them will be, obviously, it'll be easier to run, to have multiple people involved in the running of a masternode without having one person still control all the keys, for example. So of course that'll make it easier to where now you'll be able to have, every time you have to restart the Masternode or do whatever to actually keep it running and keep the funds going, you'll be able to just have the operator do that and won't have to actually touch control over the funds at all. And the other thing, though, is according to what I've read, you'll be able to split the Masternode rewards into 2 different locations. So you can specify a percentage that goes to the operator and a percentage that goes to the actual end point. So this stuff is stuff that gets me pretty excited, because now instead of, okay, so you hold the collateral for your clients, you hold all the keys, and you receive the payouts and then send whatever on back to the end user. Now you'll be able to literally just set up your share of the Masternode proceeds to go straight to you, and then whatever else to go straight to the users.
Yeah.
So that's something that'll be pretty interesting to see how that shakes out.
That's actually great for us, because as of right now, you know, obviously with our redundancies, we keep everything on numerous different cold storage wallets within a vault. So when we build a new Masternode, we actually have to go through the process, because we want these redundancies, we go through the process of basically scraping the Dash payments off each one of those devices, and putting it on a new device to create that Masternode, which is obviously pretty labor intensive. So with that new system, we could actually just direct it into one new wallet. That wallet hits 1,000, boom, new Masternode. Or, I mean, it opens up the ability to actually pay out dividends directly.
Yeah, and there's some other things that I do not think have been explicitly outlined yet, but it seems like it will be easier to reduce the amount of trust that someone would need for creating a pool Masternode. So, for example, possibly create like a multi-signature collateral wallet, so that way, for example, if you have, say, 100 Dash, you get 10 users to a Masternode. So you have 10 users in all deposit into a single location, but each have a key that's part of that. So that way, that it, in addition to whatever kind of legal protection someone might have, now they have the protection of they actually need their signature in order for those funds to be moved. And at the same time, the operator does not need to say, "Hey guys, can you all sign a thing so I can start the node again?" Because they already have their own own collateral. So anyway,
I mean, it really increases the functionality. I see that. So that could actually be a very useful tool for us, and actually make things more efficient for us.
It's going to be huge for companies like Neptune Dash for sure.
Yeah, and I could actually see it opening up some functionality in terms of other companies getting creative with that ability.
Why did Neptune Dash actually decide to do the pool-in service? Because things were clearly going very well for you and still are. So offering this additional service is a great thing. But would you be open to, in the future, perhaps considering reducing the minimum requirement to 100 Dash to, say, 10 Dash to help our friends in Venezuela and elsewhere?
Absolutely. So first question, why did we do this? So, I mean, currently we have a revenue stream that's in line with our Masternodes, the payout, you know, so that's whatever the 5% it is now. So that's a pretty straightforward revenue calculation. We have Neptune stake that's kind of sitting there as an index, not really doing much, waiting for the markets to come back so we can raise some capital and do something with that. And, you know, we're always looking at additional revenue streams we're always trying, as a public company, we always want to be adding value for shareholders. So our number one focus, obviously, is to add value for our shareholders, drive that increase in the share price. So for us, really, what we're looking at other angles and saying, sitting in the boardroom saying, how do we add to this revenue stream? We have a good revenue stream. We could do nothing, but it doesn't make sense to do nothing. Let's look at pooling. So we ran some numbers on pooling. Didn't look super lucrative because I think we were very conservative in terms of our estimates, the number of people who would be interested in the service and who actually have enough Dash that makes it worthwhile for us. So we sort of tested that market. And again, it exceeded our expectations. So, hey, how do we add a revenue stream to an already revenue generating business? pooling was perfect for it. Will it be great? Will we raise a ton of money? Or will we generate a ton more revenue? Probably not. It's probably going to be much less than our existing masternodes. But in the future, we could, I mean, 100 masternodes, that would be great. That'd be extra revenue. It's not too expensive to run these things. If we can get 1,000, I mean, that's exceptional. But I don't see a competitor that is as transparent as Neptune Dash or fully insured or all those sorts of things.
What do you think the average turnaround time is for people who send the 100 Dash? How long do you anticipate to get the Masternode fired up?
Oh, so right now I can sort of walk you through what I can tell you. I mean, we'll have a press release going out with more details next week, and because we're a public company, I can't talk about details in that press release. But we are currently building our first pool of Masternode, which will come together early next week after the Canadian long weekend. So we should see that coming out Wednesday or Thursday. That'll be quite exciting. That'll be our Masternode number 19, and so that's basically our first beta test. So that's pretty cool and pretty exciting.
What is the user experience like? If I refer friends and family to your service, once they sign up and log in, is there like a user dashboard that they can look at like once a month to check the payouts? Is it user friendly, or is it, as you said before, is it just on the phone and then based on trust and emails, or is there actually a graphic user interface?
Right. So again, because this is beta, it's an evolution. It's an evolving process. So we need to get feedback from users first of all to say, hey, this dashboard isn't giving us enough detail. We want something a little more transparent. We want to see this. We want to see exactly what do they log in and do they see exactly what they have in their payout, or is it sort of just a payout board and they can calculate their numbers? So I mean, we're obviously going to try and finesse that over time and make it better, but that's going to take some capital. So we need to put some money into it. So we're sort of balancing, is it worthwhile doing all that up front, or is it better to just see what we get, run the beta test, maybe we get 10 masternodes. Hey, now we have sort of that critical mass, let's put some dollars to work here. Let's get an interface that's like seamless and amazing, and everybody can see exactly what their payout is, where it is. It was like logging into your bank account. So I mean, that's the end goal, obviously, is to make this really, really seamless. Hey, click on the legal agreement. You get an email instantly from us. Somebody calls, you answer. Somebody calls you. We deal with you over a couple of days, and then we take the Dash into an address. And like within 48 hours, you see your holdings up there and your payout and all those sorts of figures that are useful to you. And so I expect this is going to be an evolving process over the next couple months.
Okay, well, I don't actually think we've said it yet. The actual website is neptune-.com, and it's been updated since I've last been to there, because on the menu there's a pooling option, and last time I was there it was like a sign up for a waiting list, and now there's a lot more information with terms and conditions, which is great news, and it's interesting to see. Okay, let me ask you. Okay, let me put it to you this way: do you see the pooling service as a better option than high street saving accounts? If you were talking to your friends and family, I mean, like, because this is a different. I don't want to. I'm being careful with my words because I don't want you to get in trouble. But when people look at getting returns, there's very limited options right now, and the interest base rates around the world is not great. So this is actually really, a really great option available to people. Obviously, 100 Dash is still a lot of skin in the game, but ultimately, you're offering a pretty good service here. So,
I mean, I think to me, it seems like a no-brainer. Why would I ever, even if I have 25 or 10 Dash, why would I sit on it at home and make absolutely zero? That makes no sense. And if you don't have the capital to buy in this sort of price range, I mean, imagine it goes back to its highs and beyond that. Now you're sitting on some dough. Do you want to? Your options are really to liquidate it and take fiat, which I mean you probably wouldn't because you're probably a believer like us. In which case, why would I not make something on that? Now I don't want to send it to anybody in some sketchy nation anywhere in the world who have no legal recourse if anything happens. So we see Neptune Dash as like literally the best option, and we charge maybe a couple points more for that. But I think it's a compelling argument. I mean, basically you send it over and you get a dividend.
Yeah, it's interesting because we were speaking earlier. I don't remember if that was before or not, before we went live or not, speaking earlier about the whole speculative issue of the way to make profits on cryptocurrency tends to be selling at someone else's loss.
Right.
And of course, when you have 1,000 Dash versus the same amount of, say, Litecoin, say do like an apples to apples thing, the 1,000 Dash can now make you more money than the Litecoin can, unless you're extremely bullish on Litecoin short term, for example. Right. And so, but like all other things being equal, that's more valuable than the actual sticker value. And so what you just did is you reduced that number, you knocked a 0 off of it. Now 100 Dash is more valuable than, say, the same amount of Litecoin or other cryptocurrency that has the exact same price, because you can still make more money off that. So effectively, as the ecosystem develops and there's more and more frictionless services that allow you to actually get a portion of the returns, then the value of having Dash is going to be above its specific otherwise market rate. Does that seem like a reasonable assumption to make?
Absolutely, substantially greater, because I mean, it depends what country in the world you're in, but I mean, okay, so if you're in Iran and interest rates are 20-something%, but your real is devaluing at 10% a day, that's a problem. Or if you're in Venezuela, same sort of thing, right? So, I mean, for, let's say, your average guy in the United States, and he puts it in the bank and he gets pretty much nothing in terms of interest. I mean, interest rates going up, but it's still pretty much nothing. You can literally instantly buy Dash, jam it over to Neptune Dash, stick it in a pool, and get, I guess, 18%, so 82% of the Dash reward associated with your Dash. So you're instantly getting interest. So anybody can get interest on their money.
The 100 Dash is good, but I think really people are going to be interested in this service or already in the Dash ecosystem. I think once it's proved successful and you've done really good and any issues and you're comfortable and you want to scale some more, I think if you could bring it down to like 10 Dash, then I think the accessibility is going to be so much greater, because then let me ask you just one question. So in Canada right now, if I just went to like a high street bank and set up a saving account, an easy access saving account, what kind of percentage return would I get per year? You're talking 1%, 2%?
Probably no, 0.8, 0.7. Yeah. Maybe at best, if you're putting it with, a Tangerine high interest savings account, maybe you're getting some promo interest rate of 2%, like maybe.
Okay, well, this is the reason why I asked, because I was just looking, I've just been doing some numbers. So right now on the website documentation, it says that the service fee is like 18%.
Correct.
So those that aren't in Dash but interested in returns and savings accounts, you should listen up, because this might be of interest. So I'm just going to round up the numbers here. So the Dash Masternode ROI per year right now is just under 7%, but just for numbers' sake, we'll just say 7%. 18% of 7 is 1.26, which means the pooling service will give a 5.74% interest rate. I can tell you, being in the UK, the best easy access saving account right now with withdrawals as well is 1.5. That is the best one available.
That's pretty high. I was thinking.
That is the best one I can find. Most of them 1% or even lower. So even just out the gate, 5.74% is amazing. So I think even people that aren't in the cryptocurrency world see that will open up their eyes a lot. So that's why I'm kind of pushing more on the 10 Dash, because I really think accessibility is everything.
Something I need to really be super clear on. When I said 100 Dash, that's like this week. That's this week to set up a new Masternode. This isn't know how it's going to be going forward. This is like just our beta testing. So for beta testing, just for ease, we want to keep the number of customers down while we test this thing and tweak it a little bit. But I'm again, that's our CTO's decision as to when to open that up to everybody. I mean, I assume that number is probably going to come down to divide by 10. I mean, it's probably going to be the next level will probably be 10 Dash. and then less than that. I mean, we're taking everybody now though. We're looking at everybody and we're seeing, hey, what can our yields be? If we can build a Masternode a week, that'd be awesome. How do we do that? How many people do we need? So I mean, that's like, it's an aggressive goal. That's what I want to see.
Excellent. And besides the pooling service, are you still actively buying up masternodes now?
Or rather, is that on the horizon, or is that in your mind or conception right now? Or are you just kind of like, we're kind of done for a little while, we're going to just kind of wait it out?
Well, I mean, we're earning, so we're always earning, so we're always going to be creating more masternodes outside of pooling, just within our Dash. And because we have that little 18%, so that adds to it a little bit. So now we're accumulating Dash that much faster on the pooled nodes. We're always actively looking at ways to obviously increase that value for shareholders through additional revenue streams, technologies related to Dash. You know, anything that we can do to help the Dash network and profit for our shareholders is great. I've yet to have a conversation with Ryan on that yet, and that would be great if I could at some point in time. You know, he may be open or have some ideas, but you know, really anything to add that value. So, I mean, pooling is our focus right now, and we're going to take it as far as we can. And you know, we're very excited about it. So, yeah, I mean, I think we're going to see those numbers. After we release this beta test, I think then we're going to see those numbers come down substantially. Again, I want to be super clear that 100 is not the number. That's just for ease of doing the first Masternode. That's the people that we reached out to.
Yes, I think this is great, and that's really why I wanted to hit home the numbers, because just banging away on my laptop calculator, that's nearly 4 times better than what the high street banks are offering in the UK, the best saving ones. So. Plus, as well, it's not just about, you know, making money. You're helping to support and provide services to the network as well. So, I think this is great.
Yeah. Imagine you live in a country that you're not as fortunate enough to be able to rely on the banking system like the US or UK or Canada. I mean, the EU, I think, is down to pretty much close to 0% interest rate. I mean, other countries are negative because, you know, currency is getting devalued so quickly. So, I mean, we have you know, in my opinion, it's kind of a fiat race to the bottom right now. I mean, it's the cream of the crud, who's the least of the worst right now in terms of fiat. So
the most polished turd.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, if you want to actually, at minimum, preserve your wealth as an individual, and this is me going back to my gold bug years. You know, preservation of wealth should be number one. And so how do you do that? Well, take it out of the hands of the financial system, which is the banks and governments who print more money and devalue your savings. So you have to be really keen on and really acute in terms of where you invest your funds. I mean, whether it be real estate or blue chip stocks, but you got to keep up with inflation at minimum. At best, you're beating inflation by some margin. You know, again, this is why I came to cryptocurrencies, because I get it. There's scarcity fundamentals, and now, hey, scarcity fundamentals, there'll only ever be 19 million, and plus we have this beautiful thing, which is a dividend paid out.
Yeah, are you still bullish on Dash? I mean, like you were saying, when you first got in, Dash was in like the top 5, and you've been scaling the masternodes. It was good that you kind of held off for a little bit. That was quite smart. I don't know if that was forward thinking on your part, but that was quite smart. But like right now, obviously,
in the boardroom on that. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. But like, are you still optimistic for Dash? Do you keep up to date?
I'm super optimistic. Absolutely. I mean, I have to be, because we're all in. And you know, whatever we can do to help the Dash ecosystem thrive, we're going to do. But yeah, I'm actually optimistic on cryptocurrency as a whole. I think there's a lot of them. Different tokens serve different functions and functionality. You know, we've been pushed down the list. Dash has been pushed down the list in terms of market caps, but it's been pushed out by, you know, Bitcoin Cash and certain tokens that are completely nothing like Dash as a crypto, right? So I mean, you can look at those market caps, but really you could probably eliminate a number of those, and we're probably in the top 10.
Yeah.
So certainly, absolutely, I'm bullish. I think the ecosystem's phenomenal. Dash evolution should be a game changer. I'm very excited about that. So a number of things happening in the future that we're pretty pumped on.
Are y'all taking 100% of the rewards from those 18 masternodes and reinvesting them or keeping them in the system, or y'all cashing out any?
We don't cash out any. We're hodlers to the bitter end.
Well,
So
on that note, I do have to leave, but the other two amigos can definitely finish this fascinating conversation and see you guys out. And yeah, so thanks very much from my end for being on, and very excited to see what you guys can provide to the ecosystem in the future.
Yeah, pleasure chatting with you.
Yep, see ya.
Thanks.
Yeah, so very, very exciting times. Right. So if you've got any questions, throw them in the live chat now. Why I've got Cale on. So if people want to know more about this, neptune-.com, you've got the terms and conditions up there. That you've got a whole page dedicated to the pooling service. Yep. There's still the waiting list on there as well. You can sign up for, right? So yep. You can still get involved.
Everybody will be contacted. Everybody will be contacted.
Okay. Why I'll just give people the opportunity to ask some questions. I just want to say it. Look, it is kind of a trusted service. There's no getting around that. However, if that makes you uncomfortable, Neptune Dash has kind of got a bit more of advantage than other pooling services, because if you're uncomfortable with that trusted nature aspect of it, you can just buy shares in the service, which essentially is the same thing, because they're using that to recycle and put into more masternodes and help support the network even more. So is that what you say to people as well? Or, I mean,
yeah, it's funny, right? Because we're a public company, you could literally buy shares in the company, which is essentially you're owning a share of the shares. It's shares of shares, right? I mean, shares of pooling. So it's pretty funny that way. So yeah, you could absolutely buy shares in the company if you're not comfortable with sending Dash to a company. But again, listen, we're a Canadian public company. We have very strict rules we need to abide to. We're under the watchful eye of the regulatory authorities. We have a legal system here in Canada that provides for legal recourse if there are any problems or issues. And again, we do guarantee your Dash. I believe it's in the legal agreement. We have enough of our own Dash to cover your Dash, stored separately.
Yeah, I can see you, and there's a PDF I think attached as well with all the nitty-gritty details on withdrawals, everything. But it's good. It looks like you've covered all the points just from having a quick look at it. But yeah, this is exciting times. Yeah,
it is really exciting. I mean, we are not worried about the price of Dash. I say I don't like it. It's not great, but still, I mean, over time, Dash is performing very well. I believe the ecosystem is entirely intact. We're sort of following, the leaders in terms of Bitcoin, that sort of thing, in terms of pricing. But I believe we're in for good things into the future.
Yeah, Dash is definitely due for a reevaluation to the upside. I think
absolutely.
What do you view as your biggest risks or potential problems?
Yeah, so I mean, there's two reasons why. I mean, and I'm going to talk in terms of the company as a whole. There's the two reasons you would not buy our stock and you would want nothing to do with our company. First being, you don't believe in cryptocurrency. You think it's a scam. I've heard this from a number of people. Cryptocurrency is a scam, and I said, okay, well, why are you on a cryptocurrency site, or why are you even? I don't know why you're even commenting here then and wasting your time. So cryptocurrency is a scam. Then you would not buy our stock. That would be pretty risky and not in line with your general investment profile. Secondly, you like cryptocurrency, but Dash maybe not so much. It sort of slid down the list in terms of market caps. My response to that is, yeah, it slid down in terms of market caps, but look at the trading volume. I mean, we're 300 million to 350 million per day in trading volume. There are some serious Dash changing hands every single day. So maybe the market cap's a little lower. I don't expect that to last forever, but look at the volume in terms of transactions. I mean, it's substantial.
Excellent. And you do blog updates as well, right? I occasionally see you sharing articles on social media.
Oh yeah. We keep all our social media running. Dustin here, our investor relations manager in the office, is on top of all that sort of stuff. So he's good, and he's probably more on top of all the intricacies of the Dash network than I am. So I rely on him to update me. But yeah, I mean, we're on top of everything, and we promote Dash obviously as much as we can. And again, true believers in the ecosystem.
do you continue to still go to events? Because within our community, we're always seeing these blockchain cryptocurrency events all over the place. But I noticed the events that you attend are very outside the crypto circuit. They're, you know, for retail investors. So that's one unique aspect I really like about you guys, because you're tackling a demographic really that may not even be privy to cryptocurrency. Is that still on the cards? Do you still attend?
Yeah. Absolutely, because you got to imagine the people who are looking at our stock are generally unsophisticated users, maybe never heard of Dash, just heard of cryptocurrency. Hey, what are the stocks out there? I don't know how to deal with it myself. I want exposure, but I don't know how to get into this market. So those are a lot of the people we're dealing with, and which is why we attend, you know, finance events, general investor events. I'm sitting on a panel with Royal Bank of Canada, I think in a couple of weeks, regarding blockchain and cryptocurrency. You know, I sat in a panel in Montreal on ETFs. I think it was this summer, and we did a little profile of the audience and asked everybody to raise their hand who thought cryptocurrency was going to zero. And I think it was about like 70% of people in the crowd thought it was going to zero. It was pretty interesting. So, so we're talking to those people, the people who literally think it just came on, they think cryptocurrency is something that happened in the last year. That's being crippled and punished by the market and probably going to go to zero. Well, I mean, if your perspective is like mine, which was looking at BTC when it was a few bucks, you know that's not the case. It's been around for 10 years. It has these ebbs and flows, these rallies and pullbacks, and the next rally will probably be higher if history repeats itself. So I'm not worried about that. I just need to spread the word and tell people about it. And so that's what we do. So, I mean, we're happy to attend those super technical events. Does it help our stock? Probably not. It's probably more just sort of to chat to people within the ecosystem and stuff like that. I mean, we don't need to promote Dash to people who already believe in Dash.
Excellent. So you mentioned earlier that there's a press release coming out next week, which will have more details on this service.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, we're going to talk about pooling a little more and what we're doing. We'll be updating the market regarding our sort of first beta testing, and where we anticipate that going over the next months after that.
And what social media are on? Where can people go to follow you that are interested to learn more?
Yeah, so we're on LinkedIn, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. I mean, pretty much all the general channels. There's a lot of stuff on Reddit where we're mentioned, where we chat with different people. So all your general sort of media channels, we're there. So I mean, happy to be involved in more. If you guys can think of anything that will help us out, we're always ears open.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the press release, and of course, Dash Force News will cover it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll obviously retweet all that and get it out to the general public, because I mean, again, it's a pretty niche market who follow you guys, and you know, we want to get this out to the people who don't even know what Dash is, and that's our goal.
Okay, one last question, and then I think we'll wrap up. Sure. So, how often do you communicate with the Dash core group? Do you speak to Ryan often, or the team? Are they interested? We had Ryan on the podcast a few weeks back, and he said he's been speaking to a few different pooling services, which I think included yourselves as well.
Yeah. So we, you know, it's funny because we're always wondering how our relationship with the Dash group would be, because we're a public company and we're sort of more finance driven, and we obviously operate in very different spaces. But I think now that we're here, we're established, we're not going anywhere. We're here for the long term. We're a competitive force in the ecosystem and in the public realm in itself. I think it's probably time that we opened up more dialogue between us and Dash Core Group. So I haven't personally not talked to Ryan. Would love to. Maybe there's some point in time we can both come on your show and chit chat and that sort of thing. I think it'd be a lot of fun. And I mean, open for any opportunities to work with the group.
Well, you've got the best stock ticker, Dash, right? Dash.V.
No, it's awesome. Yeah. I mean, some people get it confused. They're like, oh, I want to buy some Dash. Is this how we do it? I mean, we're like, okay, well, Dash is our ticker. We're not actually Dash, you know.
Yeah. So,
like, it can be confusing, but
so you're on the Toronto Stock Exchange, Venture Exchange, right?
Venture Exchange, correct. Yeah. Ticker in SH. We're on the OTC as well.
That's New York, right?
OTC is over the counter, so it's New York, yeah. It's sort of a gray market listing, but you can buy it through a U.S. broker. Most people through a broker would have access to Canadian markets as well. I know the Europeans do. The Germans love this stuff as well because they like precious metals, so they all have access. We'd also trade on the Frankfurt.
You're on the Frankfurt exchange as well. Yeah. That's great. So
European, US OTC, and Canadian TSXV.
Yeah, that's really interesting aspect because in the UK we have something that's called ISAs, which allows us to allocate money into stocks and shares tax-free up to a certain level.
Okay, yeah.
But there's only but there's certain exchanges and stuff on. So if there's anyone from the UK here, or if you have a similar kind of service in the country that you reside in, you could potentially invest in Dash shares with Neptune Dash tax-free and yield results, and so that's an interesting aspect to look at as well. I haven't really thought about that.
Same in Canada, we have what's called a TFSA. So all the Canadians out there, if they actually buy stock of Dash in their TFSA, they actually can shelter that, or their RRSP. They can shelter those tax losses basically, or taxable gains. So any money they make on that stock, trading it, they can avoid taxes on that or not pay tax under your TFSA and RSP. But I think there's something similar in the US as well. You could probably buy OTC stocks and the same sort of thing.
Okay. We just had a question just coming in the live chat, so I'll just throw it over to you. Question: if your stock price grows faster than the Dash price, can you sell more stocks to build more nodes? I think it would have to go up a hell of a lot, right?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and we've sort of wrestled with that. And that's actually a question I brought to Fidelity when I met with them. It's a bit of a sensitive issue because then you're trading. If we move faster than the price of Dash, we trade at a significant premium to NAV. So if our premium to NAV gets to a certain multiple, to raise money at that premium and then take all that money that we raise and dump it right back into NAV is not dilutive at all. It's actually very accretive for shareholders. Shareholders don't like to see a raise when they bought shares at a higher price. So people bought at 40 cents in the market, and now we're trading at 15 cents or 12 cents or whatever, and say our price goes up to 30 cents, but the price of Dash hasn't moved, and we're like, oh, quickly raise $100 million and we'll dump it right back into Dash. Well, that's super accretive. I mean, we're basically getting double the Dash for $1. However, existing shareholders don't like that, and that could wipe out any premium that you have really quickly. And it could be seen as something sort of not very ethical. So we haven't done that. I mean, we've talked about it a little bit. We're thinking, okay, well, if we're at enough of a premium, why wouldn't we just raise dollars and put 100% of those dollars right into Dash? We have not done that just because we want to be loyal to our initial investors, people who supported us, stuck it out. We want to do what they want to see, which is nobody wants to see dilution or more shares issued at these levels. So right now we have to sort of grow organically. We do have enough money in our treasury to take us through probably years of operations. We have a very, very low burn rate here, a very small team. We're very cost effective in running this business.
Do you see a correlation with the price of Dash and the interest in Neptune Dash? For example, with Dash Force News, in December when we had the price at all-time high, we had the most traffic on the website. So typically with the price, we see a strong correlation. But in terms of people buying shares, is there a connection there as well for you?
100%. If we have a big move in Dash in a day, we'll see 1 million shares plus traded. It's interesting that it's a good question, because over the last couple of weeks, price has been relatively flat, right? 170 to 190. It's been sort of waffling there. Our volume has dropped off substantially. So everybody's sort of sitting back waiting for a direction. Once it starts percolating again and the price starts moving, people jump in. We'll let people take 1 million share swaths because again, this is for trading. So some people can just trade the stock, clip 2 pennies on 1 million shares, and that's good money in a day. So if they see that sort of momentum going and they believe the share price is going to move with that, which it pretty much does 95% of the time, people are going to jump in. So volume certainly attributed to high moves either way in Dash. Again, same thing happens on the downside, unfortunately. A down day in Dash is also a down day for us in the market.
Excellent. Tal's just written a comment just saying opinions on the current banking climate versus crypto. So how do you feel? How's it going in Canada in banking terms?
I mean, in terms of, I mean, when we're talking about banks investing in crypto or blockchain, or specifically, what do we mean?
I think he's just talking in general about the climate. Yeah. Do you feel it's healthy in Canada right now?
Oh yeah, I mean the banking sector is very healthy. I mean, what's interesting about Canada is that we have this sort of speculative market, which is the TSXV and the CSE, which basically bring in a lot of capital from all over the world. And right now we're experiencing certainly a bear market in crypto because a lot of people jumped in December. Those people have been burned, and it takes some time for that to work through the system until new buyers come in. So we're seeing that it's going to take some time for that to wash out. Our banking system is great. It's probably one of the top in the world. We didn't see the financial crisis nearly on the same level that Europe saw it. The UK obviously was a disaster, and in the US. So we actually sort of weathered that fairly well. Right now in Canada, we have a toppy housing market. We have low unemployment. You know, obviously blue chips are performing well as well, like they are in the US. That looks to me a little toppy, but that's just my personal opinion. But I would say cryptocurrency is considered to be in a short-term bear market right now, for sure. But the banks are open to cryptocurrency. The government's coming around, looking at different regulation. You know, I've had a lot of chats with the CRA, the Canada Revenue Agency, which is like the IRS in the US. And they're very open. They want to learn more about it. It's actually great having these conversations because they try and dictate some sort of rules. And I say, no, actually, it doesn't really work like that. We're not, you know, we're sort of mining, but we're not. They're trying to explain masternodes to a CRA employee is tricky. But I think the environment is well ahead of the EU and the UK in North America. So North America seems to be on the cutting edge.
So Neptune Dash has had a pretty positive response when you speak to people in the banking world or perhaps hedge funds. It's received positive, you know, in a positive aspect, in a positive light.
Absolutely. When we did our raise, it was 80% funds. So we didn't even hit up retail investors. It was a very small component. I think we've had a swap out though. I think it's been, now we have more retail and less funds. I think some of the funds exited because they got nervous. We obviously have our big supporters like Fidelity, but yeah, the banking sector in Canada very intact. We have a very progressive government in terms of blockchain, cryptocurrency, all for regulation. I don't think we're going to see anything like aggressive in terms of banning or overregulation or anything like that. So it's been very positive. It's been my experience.
So you've not received any like pushback from the banks? They don't like what you're doing? You haven't had any?
No, I think I've heard stories where you can have that. I mean, we put in some redundancies for that just in case. But because we're not taking purchases in Bitcoin directly into fiat into a bank account, that's where things get a little more stringent. We're not actually buying crypto at all. I mean, that's all completely separate than our operational account, which is just fiat currency.
Yeah, excellent. I think we should probably wrap up, but I just want to say I'm very impressed with Neptune Dash, the professionalism. They seem to be the most trusted, solution out there, and I'm personally going to invest in it here soon.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, thanks, and thanks for having me on the show. I'm happy to come on anytime.
Brian, is that shares or the pooling service?
The pooling,
both. Both is the
but maybe both. Maybe both. Yeah, definitely pooling.
Yeah. Happy to have you on board.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Cale. You're always welcome to come back, and bring on Troy, bring on Dustin as well. We can have a good old chat.
Yeah, we'll set the whole little office up here. We'll get a little backdrop happening.
Excellent. Well, I very much look forward to the press release next week.
Perfect.
So, thanks, Cale. So I hope you've enjoyed this podcast and you found it to be very informative. If you've enjoyed it, please like, share, and subscribe. Right now, we're going to be heading over to the Dash Talk Discord community channel at staydashu.com, where we'll have an after party for up to 10 people, where we'll just be talking about proposals, Dash, what's gone on this week, the price, anything and everything. First come, first serve. staydashy.com. Come and say hello, and that'd be fantastic. And it's Friday or Friday, so happy days. So I hope everyone has a fantastic weekend. And as always, stay positive, stay humble, but most importantly, stay dashy. See you later, guys.